When Tim proudly invited his in-laws over to showcase his newly built home, their laughter echoed through the air. Mocking comments about the size and width of his house filled the room, but as the in-laws reluctantly stepped inside, an unexpected twist left them in stunned silence. Margaret and Eric were very confused by what they encountered inside the tiny house of their son-in-law Tim. They did not know what they had expected to see exactly, but surely not this. There was basically anything in the house, not even the bare necessities, and Tim was living here with their daughter? Why would she ever agree to this? There had to be something going on. But before we start, smash the like button, subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so you never miss any of our upcoming stories. After a very quick tour of the inside, they settled on the small terrace with some coffee and cake. From the conversation, Eric and Margaret could determine that Tim was not exactly happy to have them here. Which was not a complete surprise, as they never saw eye to eye all that much, and they had kind of just invited themselves over today. But even their daughter Cynthia seemed to be somewhat annoyed with their presence. Feeling a bit unwelcome, Eric tells Tim that they won't be long. He just wants to use the bathroom real quick, and then they will head out as soon as possible. So Eric excuses himself, but he does not actually need to go to the bathroom. He had strongly gotten the feeling that something was not right in this house, and he was determined to quickly find out what. It was only a small house, so it would not take him long to find out if there was something hidden there. And Margaret had no problem with keeping Tim and Cynthia occupied with conversation for the time being, and so Eric quickly gets to work looking under the bed and the cabinet, everything she could think of. And it would not take long until he found it. Eric pulled open the clothing closet on the ground floor a little too hard, and he felt that the entire closet came off the wall a little bit. At first, he was afraid that he might have broken it, and that he would be busted because of it. But when he pulled a little more, he felt the closet giving way very easily, and it even came off the wall. When he looked behind it, he saw a big hatch on the ground. This was clearly what Tim had been hiding, and Eric could barely contain his curiosity. But just as he wanted to pull up on the hatch, a stern voice filled up the air. "You get away from there, Eric. This is none of your business." It was Tim, and following close behind him were Cynthia and Margaret. Eric wanted to apologize for snooping around, but before he even got the chance, he was already pointed to the door. Tim demanded that he and Margaret leave right away. Eric looked at his daughter Cynthia for help, but it was clear that she was on Tim's side here. There was no way they would be allowed to stay, and Eric feared that this would also be the last time they'd be allowed in their home. He desperately attempted to ask what was below the hatch, but was just asked to leave again, giving Eric no other choice. Defeated and feeling a little guilty, they left the house and had the door shut behind them without even the slightest of goodbyes. Now the question was what they had to do now, but Margaret quickly gave Eric some very interesting information about what had happened while he was searching the house. And Eric realized this went a lot deeper than he expected. They were apparently having a very normal and calm conversation when suddenly Tim's phone started going off. The sound of alarm of some sort filled the air, and Tim immediately got up and rushed inside. Eric moving the closet must have triggered a sensor of some sort that warned Tim about what he was doing. He was clearly prepared for this to happen. It was clear that they were hiding something, and Eric had the feeling that it was something big, something very big. But neither he nor Margaret had even the slightest idea of what it could be. And they were very sure that they would not be told the truth by the daughter and son-in-law, and that they would also not be allowed back in to check. But there had to be another way. Eric felt like they had two options. The first was to just try and forget that they had never even found the secret hatch. Their children had the right to their privacy, and they should have never even seen it in the first place. And so there was only the second option, which involved them getting into the house somehow undetected, and then opening the hatch themselves to find out the truth. This would of course be a huge invasion of privacy, and if they were caught, their daughter would most likely never trust them anymore, and their relationship would be changed for the worse forever. Was that worth it? He was afraid that Tim and Cynthia were up to something that should not see the light of day, and he could not live with that thought. He had always prided himself on being a good and honest man, and the thought of his daughter being with somebody the opposite of that. Margaret was a lot more hesitant than Eric, but she did agree with him. She feared that Tim was getting her beloved daughter into a lot of trouble, and in her mind, finding out what the hell was going on was a service to her. A way of making sure she was not throwing her life away. The car ride home was draped in a thick silence, with Eric's hands tightly gripping the steering wheel and Margaret staring blankly out the window, each lost in their own troubled thoughts. At dinner, the clinking of cutlery punctuated their hesitant conversation, Is it right to pry into their lives, even if it's for their own good? Margaret pondered aloud, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Eric, his brow furrowed, countered, "But what if there's something dangerous or illegal hidden there? We can't just turn a blind eye." That night, as the house lay quiet, Eric lay awake, staring at the ceiling where shadows danced mockingly. His mind was a whirlpool of possibilities, each more unsettling than the last, about what Tim and Cynthia might be concealing beneath their home. Over breakfast, the tension was almost tangible, with Eric's impatience simmering beneath the surface and Margaret's apprehension casting a pall over the meal. "I just can't shake the feeling that spying on them is wrong, even if our intentions are good," Margaret confessed, her voice a soft whisper of internal conflict. Eric, his jaw set, replied, "Sometimes doing the right thing isn't easy, but necessary." Finally, after much deliberation, a resolution emerged from the fog of their uncertainty. "We'll keep an eye on them," discreetly Eric declared, his tone resolute yet heavy with the burden of their choice. Margaret nodded, her agreement laced with reluctance. Under the guise of casual neighborhood strolls, Eric and Margaret began their covert surveillance of Tim and Cynthia's home. Seizing opportunities for casual chats with neighbors, Eric and Margaret deftly steered conversations toward Tim and Cynthia. "But have you noticed anything unusual around their house lately?" they would ask, hoping for even the slightest hint or clue that could shed light on the enigma of the hidden hatch. From a discreet distance, Eric found vantage points to observe the house for hours, his eyes trained on any hint of peculiar activity. In the quiet of their home, Margaret voiced her doubts. "Are we doing the right thing, spying on our own daughter like this?" Despite her reservations, she remained committed, driven by a mother's instinct to protect her child, no matter the cost. A week of watchful waiting yielded nothing but mundane routines. No suspicious activities, no late-night movements, nothing that could hint at the secrets lying beneath Tim and Cynthia's home. This lack of findings only served to deepen Eric and Margaret's frustration and confusion, fueling a growing sense of helplessness in their quest for answers. During a seemingly innocuous chat with a neighbor, a subtle comment caught Eric and Margaret's attention. "Have you noticed the strange lights from Tim and Cynthia's house at night?" Intrigued and alarmed, they pressed gently for details, learning about faint glows and soft sounds emanating from the house under the cloak of darkness, adding a new layer to the mystery they were unraveling. Back home, Eric and Margaret sat with furrowed brows, trying to fit this new piece into their puzzle. Could these nighttime activities be related to the hatch? Eric pondered. Determined to seek answers, Eric and Margaret arranged a visit to Tim and Cynthia's. Under the veil of a casual catch-up, they scrutinized the house for any anomalies that could point to the hatch's purpose. Every corner held potential clues, and each seemingly innocent conversation was an opportunity to gently probe for information. Their visit, however, ended leaving them more baffled than before. The house appeared normal, and Tim and Cynthia were their usual selves, giving away nothing out of the ordinary. The hatch remained an enigma, its purpose and contents as elusive as ever. Eric and Margaret left with a growing pile of questions and no answers in sight. Their next visit to Tim and Cynthia's home was marked by an undercurrent of tension, palpable in every forced smile and overly polite conversation. Attempts to act normal fell flat, with each pause and sidelong glance adding to a growing sense of awkwardness. The visit concluded abruptly, leaving an unsettling feeling that their suspicions had not gone unnoticed. In the days that followed, Eric and Margaret sensed an increasing distance between them and their daughter and son-in-law. Phone calls became less frequent, and conversations were short and superficial. This growing detachment only served to intensify their concern, adding a layer of emotional distress to their already troubled minds. One evening, amidst their silent contemplation, Margaret voiced a troubling thought. Are we betraying Cynthia's trust by prying into her life like this? Despite the emotional toll, Eric's resolve to uncover the truth remained unshaken. He acknowledged Margaret's concerns but argued, "If there's something wrong, we need to know, for Cynthia's sake." Under the veil of darkness, Eric witnessed a clandestine delivery at Tim and Cynthia's house. Shadowy figures quietly unloaded building materials, their actions deliberate and secretive. Hidden from view, Eric's mind raced with implications. Why the secrecy? Why now? This late-night activity seemed to add another perplexing layer to the already mysterious hatch. In the quiet of their living room, Eric shared his observations with Margaret. They pondered the purpose of such materials in a house so small. They must be for something hidden, perhaps beneath the hatch, Margaret conjectured, her voice tinged with fear and curiosity. Determined to unravel the mystery, Eric and Margaret agreed they had to uncover what lay beneath. "We have to know, for our peace of mind and for Cynthia's safety," Eric stated firmly. As they prepared for their covert entry, doubts lingered. "Are we crossing a line?" Margaret wondered, torn between morality and concern. Eric shared her fears but remained focused on protecting their daughter. The choice between potential harm and uneasy ignorance was agonizing. With resolve, they studied Tim and Cynthia's routines, searching for the right opportunity. They gathered tools, flashlight, gloves, crowbar, each item chosen with purpose. The preparation felt surreal, as if they were characters in a story beyond their own reality. They meticulously tracked daily movements, crafting a detailed schedule. Each note brought them closer to their goal, yet Margaret's anxiety grew. "What if we're caught? What if this destroys our relationship with Cynthia?" she asked one evening, burdened by doubt. After days of observation, they found the perfect window, a time when Tim and Cynthia would be away. The plan, once abstract, was now imminent. Eric and Margaret exchanged a look of resolve. This was their chance to act on their suspicions. As the night before their mission arrived, doubts plagued them. "Are we really doing the right thing?" Margaret whispered. Eric, equally conflicted, acknowledged the moral weight of their actions. Over untouched coffee the next morning, they debated their ethics. "We're invading their privacy," Margaret admitted. "But if something is wrong, isn't it our duty to uncover it?" Eric countered. Despite their turmoil, their decision was made not in haste, but out of a deep need to protect Cynthia. That night, anxiety kept sleep at bay as they braced for what lay ahead. At dawn, they steeled themselves and moved under the cover of darkness. Slipping through the back door, they navigated the empty house, now shadowed by their secret mission. They located the hatch hidden behind the closet, working together to expose it. Eric disabled the alarm he had previously triggered, their breaths held in anticipation. With a mix of fear and determination, Eric opened the hatch. The ladder descended into darkness, and Margaret followed, each step tightening the grip of their unease. At the bottom, they found the unexpected: a fully furnished, carefully designed underground living space. It was an entire hidden world beneath the house, complete with all the comforts of a home, yet concealed from view. Eric and Margaret stood in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the hidden living space's elaborate design. The unspoken question hung between them: what should they do next? As they explored further, they discovered a meticulously arranged network of rooms, complete with a kitchen, bathroom, and lounge. Personal belongings suggested frequent use, raising urgent questions: who built this? Why was it kept secret? Back on the surface, they faced a dilemma. Should they confront Tim and Cynthia or involve authorities? The implications were vast, and their next move could alter their family dynamic forever. After much deliberation, they decided to confront their daughter and son-in-law directly. The weight of their discovery made it impossible to ignore. Preparing for the conversation, they braced for potential fallout. Sitting in Tim and Cynthia's living room, they awaited their return, tension thick in the air. When the couple arrived, Eric and Margaret revealed their discovery, their voices laced with concern and accusation. Shock crossed Tim and Cynthia's faces as they realized their secret had been exposed. After a moment of silence, Tim explained the underground space was a solution to restrictive building codes, not an act of deception. A heartfelt discussion followed. Eric and Margaret voiced concerns over legality and safety, while also acknowledging their breach of trust. The revelation reshaped their understanding, forcing them to navigate the fragile balance between protection and privacy. Tim and Cynthia understood their concerns and apologized for the secrecy, fostering mutual understanding and reconciliation. As the conversation settled, they agreed to seek legal advice to ensure the hidden space complied with local laws. This marked the beginning of a new chapter, one of openness, trust, and stronger family bonds. The story didn't end but promised a fresh start for them all. Thank you for watching. If you like this story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscription, and ring the notification bell so you never miss our upcoming stories.